Phil.
Are you listening? Damn.
What's up, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of Race to 100. We are on episode number 8 now. I am Rick Thorcell.
And I'm Neil Batang. Thank you for tuning in.
And today we've got an interesting topic that we're going to be talking about: black correspondents interviewing the KKK. So, recently there was a comedian who's starting a new program on CNN, W. Kamau Bell. I think I'm pronouncing that correctly. And he's got a new show that the whole premise is black people going where they shouldn't. And his first episode is him going to a KKK rally and talking with members of the KKK, trying to have some sort of comedic dialogue and bridge gaps. He's got his own particular agendas. But then you also see a lot of these other black correspondents who have recently reached out to members of the KKK and just trying to interview them, to have conversations and all that. So, you know, I as a white person, I don't really know what my initial reaction is. That is fine. I'm neutral on it. I think that it's bold. I think that the downside is that you're giving people in the KKK a platform for their message, but ultimately it's a unique experience and it's entertaining at the very least. But what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think this is a new thing that's happening.
Of course, it's a new thing that's happening.
You've got black correspondents, as you said, interviewing hate groups, and what better group to interview than the oldest hate group there is out there, the Ku Klux Klan. There's also another...
Yeah, they wouldn't claim that they're a hate group.
Yeah, like when Chris Thomas in Virginia interviewed the Grand Imperial Wizard of the Ku Klux Klan, and he said they're not a hate group, they're for separatists, they're for making America powerful, making America great again, which is why they strongly endorse Donald Trump.
That is very interesting. They normally don't endorse candidates.
Yeah, I don't buy anything of it. I believe that they...
Why not? Why don't you buy the message that the KKK is more for a separation of the races than they are for hatred towards minorities?
Because that's what they are. They're a hate group. They've been a hate group for the last 40 to 50 years. Listen, just because it isn't overt, just because it's submersive, it's covert, it's under the table, that doesn't mean they don't hate you. Maybe they can't be violent with you. Maybe they can't say things that they normally want to because A, they're using their platform. B, you have a bunch of cameras in their face, and if anything were to occur, the police would be there in a second, hopefully. And
now,
C, for other reasons I don't feel like sharing on camera right now. But let's be honest.
Censor it.
You know what I'm saying? Let's be honest. This was all just some propaganda aimed at conveying these hate groups as equality groups. And I'm not buying it. And I hope no one else is either. It was pretty cool. Round of applause. It's very funny. I'm sure it'll get a bunch of ratings, but it's all BS.
Yeah. I can't imagine that anyone from the KKK is going to be watching a black and a white guy doing a show together. That would probably make them pretty mad. But to be clear, so yeah, I mean, the Southern Poverty Law Center does classify them as a hate group, and they do track their movements and all of that. But it's interesting too, because in one of the interviews that a black correspondent was doing with the KKK, the I forget what the title is. It's not Grand Wizard. Maybe it's Grand Wizard.
It was okay for the.
Was it a Grand Wizard?
So, Ritz looked at the comedic approach. The comedian's interview. I looked at a more serious interview with Chris Thomas from NBC 12, and the person he interviewed was called the Grand Imperial Wizard. The Grand Imperial Wizard.
Yeah.
What type of Harry Potter phrase is that for someone to lead a hate group?
It's all about legacy, man.
Why Grand Imperial Wizard, man?
And it was interesting because he had said something to the extent of he denounced violence committed against black people or violence in general committed.
And I agree, and which is what I said earlier.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying that he was a violent person. He definitely denounced it, but that doesn't mean there isn't hate. There isn't hate. I don't have to be violent towards you to hate you.
Yeah.
I don't to dislike you, to not identify with you, to want you to stay on your end. You know.
Now, I think what's overlooked though is the historical legacy of the KKK, because the KKK really, they really have rooted their history in one of violence towards black people.
Yeah.
They were one of the leading proponents of lynchings of black folks back during
32 to 3,300 in 86 years.
Yeah, and so you can't separate that from
Their legacy.
their legacy. What they are as the KKK is always going to be infused with that sense, and I think that's why I don't know. I mean, what are your thoughts about black individuals giving a platform to the KKK in an attempt to try and create dialogue? Because when I listened, and this guy, Mr. Bell, I would strongly recommend checking out his show. I think it's a really cool program, but he did a interview with Fresh Air on NPR, and he mentioned at one point in time that he left feeling like there were a couple of those members of the KKK that were like, I kind of like this black guy, and it was something that was like he could tell that something had shifted.
Yeah.
In the time that he had spent with them. He ended up going to a cross burning, and he ended up like talking with them, and it was.
And Chris Thomas on NBC 12 ended up praying with them at the end of his interview.
Yeah.
Guys going to cross burnings with the KKK and praying with them.
So that's what's
in 2016
confusing for me is that you can have this message of separation of the races, and yet when you watch the interviews between these black correspondents and members of the KKK, they seem fine. It seems like two normal people having a conversation. I mean, they may disagree severely on what they're actually talking about, but they're able to have a conversation, and it's not like I didn't see an instance where you had a member of the KKK talking down to the black person.
Okay.
Maybe that was just me, but it was an intellectual dialogue.
Mm-hmm.
It was one where the fundamental ideas.
Well, that's because they couldn't, because the black correspondent was the person in power. He was the one with the camera. He was the one with the staff. He was the one with the back.
But all the same,
he was the one with the pull. Now again, and this is something we'll never know. You think he would have been as diplomatic if that guy didn't have cameras around him?
Oh no, and I think that's
what I'm saying.
saying.
It's all BS.
But in reality, what sort of power does the KKK have in today's society? They've been pretty much relegated to a fringe group, something that is targeted by a lot of civil rights groups, and has more or less been contained, and has had to change its message from one of violence and hate into one that is more, let's say, palatable for the wider culture. Because the reason why they wanted to go on TV is to be able to communicate a message that they believe could resonate with some individuals.
Yes.
Now,
trying to, again, like I mentioned earlier, propaganda to convey these hate groups as ones for equality instead of detest, and don't buy it. They may not be as violent as they used to be, but they still hate your ass. Fact.
Yeah. And I mean, I've always been one to say, okay, I believe in the authenticity of an individual's belief. I believe that an individual can hold strongly held beliefs that may seem completely contrary or wrong to what I believe. I'm interested in trying to understand why they believe what they believe, and how that is, and trying to understand the psychology and the history and all those different factors that go into a person becoming who they are. So in the instance of a KKK, remember, they most likely grew up in an environment that didn't have any black people, that was constantly perpetuating these stereotypes, and there was no room for communication. And now they come out into a mainstream society, and they put their face out there in a more mainstream view, and in a way, I believe that they're being challenged. But on the other hand, you are giving them a platform in which there are other people around the country who are like, yeah, you know what, I kind of agree with that. So it's like a double-edged sword.
Yeah, it's a catch-22. But yeah, I mean, it's definitely interesting. It's
Are we gonna send you to a KKK rally?
Me?
Yeah.
Not without a 9mm.
Hey man, it's the Second Amendment rights, man.
Hey, you know
I'm
what
sure
I'm
they support that.
you know what I'm saying? I will not be interacting with any KKK members anytime
Really?
soon.
Even if we bring them to the studio?
No, even if I will
do an interview?
That day I'll call.
Have 'em wear the-
I'll call out sick.
Oh
Hey,
man,
you won't get
no,
me in
dude,
that
because
day.
then I have to do this, and no one wants to see that.
No one wants to see it, but I don't think anyone wants to see the KKK at our studio. But yeah, that's our stance on that. America's progressing. It's 2016. We are in the 21st century. Black guys are interviewing the KKK. So let us know what you think about all of this.
What do you guys think?
Feel free to like, comment, and subscribe to our videos so you can access our YouTube channel and more interesting content.
And we will catch you next time on the Race to 100. Peace.